Good?
She can't hear. Sheila can't hear.
Sheila, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6:01. The following board members are in attendance: Dr. Betty Bonner, Catherine Sells, Michelle Alcateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, Allison Lasan, Sheila Taylor by Zoom, and Jenny Prosnick. I will lead us in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you to guide and bless those assembled here to make good decisions for the future of those we serve. Let the words from our mouths and our thoughts and our minds be pleasing to you. Please grant us the spirit of wisdom and discernment. Help us engage in meaningful discussion and grow closer as a group. Grant us the patience to work together. Let us work together with understanding and compassion in our hearts. We ask that you bless all schools, and especially the schools within Lewisville ISD, that they may be safe places for sound learning, new discovery, and the pursuit of excellence, and grant those who teach and those who learn your protection. I ask this in your Son's name. Amen. We will now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071 and 074. The time is 6:02 p.m. We are back on the record in open session, having returned from closed session. The time now is 6:45 p.m. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. First on the agenda is to consider action on items discussed in closed session. First on the agenda is a personnel recommendation for Chief Human Resource Officer. Would someone like to make a motion? Dr. Bonner.
Helps when you hit the people button. So sorry. I move that the board approve Melissa Cobb as Chief Human Resource Officer as recommended by administration and a personnel selection committee.
Do I have a second? Ms. Sells? All those in favor? It's unanimous, 7-0. Congratulations, Ms. Cobb. Ms. Sells, would you read our mission statement?
Yes, thank you, President Prosnick. Our mission statement, engaging and inspiring learners and leaders.
And our vision statement is all students are confident, equipped with the knowledgeable skills to thrive and adapt for their future. Eventually, it'll make it up there. Next on the agenda is public comment. There were no speakers tonight. So we will move on to discussion items. Item J1, Superintendent Report. Dr. Rapp.
All right, thank you, Madam President. Our first item up is a resolution for school funding for consideration. This resolution specifically speaks to several of the concerns that we have been advocating for. It's in line with your legislative priorities that you all adopted as a board in anticipation of a possible special session. It's a resolution that calls for our legislature to increase the basic allotment, which is what we have been saying all along. It highlights that House Bill 3 passed during the 88th legislative session required the addition of armed personnel for all campuses without sufficient funding necessary for local school districts to implement this provision. It highlights the shortage identified by the Texas Commission on Special Education for special education funding. It highlights that House Bill 1416 passed during the 88th legislative session regarding high-quality tutoring programs without funding to support that. It highlights what we spoke about in May, I believe. The national average for per pupil spending is a C, and Texas is ranked currently in F, and we're ranked 42nd out of 50 states on public education funding. And so I'll just leave this resolution up for any feedback from the board about bringing a resolution forward on Monday night for consideration.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay, do you want to move on to your next resolution?
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. The school accountability resolution highlights some issues that we know districts are facing. Dr. Fitzhugh's done such a good job of bringing before you all always what we're seeing with the challenges in state accountability. And this resolution can easily be turned into a letter to express the ideas that are in the resolution, and we're open to any other items of feedback related to this one as well.
Does the board have any comments or questions? All right, we will move on. J2, Accountability and Evaluation Report. Dr. Fitzhugh, you are up.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to go through and look at the upcoming goals. Just a little bit of background. We started writing the board outcome goals in 2021. And then we also gave you guys an update on our progress at the end of year in June last year. Also, last year in June, we kind of had that discussion about our iStation reading data looking a little bit different. And I know Dr. Miller spoke to this, but I just wanted to provide a little more context on it. So, our end-of-year data came in, and you can see I've struck those out in red and added the new values. iStation, based on some of our concerns, went back and looked at the data. And what iStation discovered was that the test is made up of several sub-tests, vocabulary, reading comprehension, and there's a couple of other ones. And those all pull together to make an overall score. The overall scores were not being computed correctly. We used that overall score in terms of our kids on grade level or not. So when they found that error and fixed it, we were able to adjust our scores as a result. And so what you see there is we actually made most of our goals, and then we made significant growth in the group that we did not. We also recalculated just so you could see that now we had 30 campuses actually meet their targets. We had 8 that were within 10%, and then 1 that was between 10 to 20%, and really I think that campus was at 12%. I just didn't adjust the range that we use. For CCMR data, this is our 5-year goal that we've had on file with that one. When we looked at that end-of-year data that came in, TEA just released it, here's where our end-of-year data came in terms of students meeting our targets. We did not meet in several areas, but we met it in 4 of them. This is one of those conversations that we had with our campus principals very in depth when we went around and did our scorecard visits about how are we meeting our students' needs, how are we encouraging college, career, and military readiness. And so it's really something we're focusing on through the long-range plan as we move forward. So now, as we look moving into this school year, our updated goals, so we've updated them and extended them through the 27-28 school year. We did make some adjustments to the goals based on our second grade data that we saw come in at the end of year last year for this year's goals. The campus-specific goals, we looked at those at the end of year with that old iStation data. So the campuses really, because we haven't sat down and gone through all the changes we found, because we got that updated file from iStation at the end of July, beginning of August. So those goals were based on their second grade end-of-year data. And we'll do some recalibration throughout the year as we work on it and reset them at the end of next year. And so then they've, again, amended their goals. So this is the third grade iStation goal that we have submitted. It's in the DIP as well. It, like I said, moves forward through the 27-28 school year. We have highlighted those last 3 years in orange because we're currently discussing, do we remain with iStation or are we looking at a different instrument? If Learning and Teaching decides we would like to look at another instrument, we might have to come back and reevaluate those goals. The same with third grade math. As you can see, that's the 2024 goal there as well. Our goal by the end of 2028 is to have all of our students enclose all the different gaps, so you can see that as we move forward. And then there's the CCMR goal as well. We continue to advocate with TEA to expand their definition of CCMR. The commissioner has pretty tight control on what counts as college, career, military ready. And so that's one of the different pieces that we're looking at, especially as all the changes to the CTE program roll out. The current plan is that students would have to complete a pathway as well as a certificate. Whereas right now it's just a certificate. So that will impact our numbers as that plan rolls out. And with that, do y'all have any questions?
Any questions? Dr. Bonner. Oh, I'll let you go first, Dr. Barker.
Thank you, President Brosnick. I know that you mentioned that we're revising, reflecting the performance of the second grade students. My fear is that we don't lower our expectations of what we want our students to achieve at the end of third grade because of where they were before. So it's not really a question, but more of just a consideration as we think about our goal setting and doing it in such a way that we don't lower our expectations.
So I've got a few questions about this computation error, right? And let me just preface it with, this board back last year at the midway point, we were all afluster, right? Because these scores couldn't be right, and oh my gosh, look at this, what are we going to do? Well, excuse me, we're not adding and subtracting correctly, apparently, right? I mean, that's the long and short of it, right? Outside the mathematical operations, it's something surely more difficult than that. But
yes, I don't know what their formula is for how they combine all those subtests. So while it might seem like a simple addition and subtraction, there might have been a weighting issue. I don't know that. They didn't share it.
Let me clarify my ranting. Maybe it's not addition and subtraction, but surely it's something that we're paying for, so should be correct, right? And so, gosh, wouldn't it be great if STAR scores could be recalibrated? Maybe that there's some mathematical equations that ought to be looked at there. I don't know. Did anybody? It brings up a real confidence issue with the product, right? And so was it an error product wide, or was it just a Lewisville ISD issue?
I did not ask the scope. They didn't give that to me, but I
Yeah.
do feel that it was probably product-wide.
Yeah.
They had just gone through a renorming process, and
Yeah.
with that resetting and all of it, the sub-tests were being scored correctly. They just weren't being.
No, I follow you.
So,
Yeah.
so that's what, to iStation's credit, when we raised the concern and we dug in, yes, we did do some of the digging, but when we presented our concerns, they did go and investigate. And I think to your TEA comment, that's something that I really give credit to iStation for, because they listened to our concerns and investigated.
Well, I'm sure you brought receipts on what was wrong.
Well, we had suspicions that something was off.
So, Lewisville ISD is a large district and has capacity to do that. Canton ISD does not. So hats off to you all for finding it, but you shouldn't have to find it. And so I appreciate your comments about, I'll quit ranting in a moment, I appreciate your comments about possibly looking at other products. I wish I'd heard that they had made some sort of amend with maybe a reduction of their fees or some other instance where their sincerity was felt. So I appreciate your thoughts.
One, just comment as well, Dr. Bonner, and, it's a conversation we've had as we've set up this data about instruments in general. And assessment instruments, they come with a variety of sensitivities and pros, cons, all the things. And when we chose iStation, we were reflecting on this the other day. We've been at implementing iStation for almost a decade. And the level of sophistication that we have right now with how we're implementing it and the way we're monitoring data is a testament to the time and effort and intentionality behind that implementation, how closely we worked with a teacher group, just like we always do. We bring in our staff, we put instruments before them, we say, let's look at the best one, and we always want to be sure that we're keeping ourselves up to date on what are the best instruments out there. So there's no doubt that I promise you all will continue to go down the path of that conversation, but thank you all for your questions and always working with us. I think we model as a team that no instrument's perfect, so what does the data show you? What can you learn from it? How do you grow, and where do you go from here? And that's what we would also hope that the agency would inspire as well.
So I have a couple of questions. First, Ms. Taylor, do you have any questions? You're not on my screen, so I can't see if you've... Did you have any questions?
I did not. Thank you.
Didn't want you left out. So one of the things I would like, if you could provide the board with that second grade data, I think that would be helpful to see how we got to the adjustment for the overall goals. And then the other thing that I would like to see, since we've been doing this, as Dr. Rapp referenced, for quite a while, is to see where we are on those gaps. What did those gaps look like in 2019 even, to what do those gaps look like now? Because while we also have adjusted our targets and moving it up, I want to see if we have made any progress in closing those gaps, or if we haven't made any progress in closing those gaps. And I know that we have an update in November, so at that November presentation, it would be good to see that. So thank you very much for the work. I think it speaks highly of you and of your department that you found the mistake with iStation, so appreciate the work. All right, moving on. Chief of Schools report, Ms. Litchfield, the professional learning plan.
Good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and the board. I'm here with Kelly Roden, and she's the director of our professional learning, and she's here to share our district professional learning plan tonight.
There we go. Good evening, everybody. All right, so we're going to go over the professional learning plan, and just to kind of give some overview, the professional learning plan is the big ideas. While we can't list every single learning opportunity in LISD through every department and every campus, these are just really the big ideas. And so moving forward, if you'll look at the plan is from 2023 to 2026 to reflect the 3-year long-range plan. The purpose of the plan is to support growth and reflection of practitioners to achieve LISD visions, mission, and goals, and to connect curriculum design and instruction to impact student learning. And we have really focused this year on being intentional with our learning and that it's ongoing and that we've really tied them to campus scorecards, the long-range plan. So we're really focusing on that student learning and professional growth and being intentional with our goals. So to give a little background, Senate Bill 1267 requires the board to annually review State Board for Educator Clearinghouse regarding best practices and industry recommendations for professional development and adopt a professional development policy based on training recommendations in the clearinghouse. And so as this came about last year, what was really great is that we were already doing these things. They just weren't specifically listed in the professional learning plan. So last year what we did is when we updated the plan, we listed all of those specific requirements of the clearinghouse in there. This year there were no new requirements in the clearinghouse, so those pieces were not changed. But what's great is that while we do those things, we also go above and beyond and do additional trainings required for our staff. So while those recommendations still remain, if you'll look up there, those are what is listed specifically in the PL plan for the district. Suicide prevention, building skills related to managing emotions, bullying and cyberbullying, health and safety, bullying and cyberbullying, human trafficking, trauma-informed care, technology safety, and then epinephrine and auto-injector training. And like I said, those are not the only ones that we require everyone to do, but those were listed specifically in the clearinghouse. So for this year, what updated in the professional learning plan was, like I said, we adjusted it to the long-range plan over the next 3 years. The updates included additional performance objectives, greater focus on job-embedded learning, to have learning embedded in our job during the day so we can have a better impact on growth. Increased opportunity for feedback to drive decision-making, which you can see as we honored on our scorecard, as that's also being measured. And then additional support for campus leadership, which we had already put in place. We, again, just listed it specifically in the professional learning plan this year. So the actions that were taken was the plan was distributed to the District Advisory Committee in May last year after the long-range plan was adopted by the board. Changes were presented to the committee to allow an opportunity for them to have feedback, any changes they wanted to recommend. The great news is they had no changes to recommend this year. Last year they did. This year there were no changes that they recommended, and they approved 100%. And then that brings us here today. So any questions?
Dr. Barker.
Just a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I really appreciate the alignment that comes from the long-range plan through the data, through the scorecard, and into feedback loops that impact instruction for the students. So having all of that tied together is one of the reasons that make us such a great district, being able to connect all of those dots. So I really appreciate the attention to that in this learning plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've really helped try to focus the principals on tying their TPES goals to those things, the campus improvement plans, so that we all are in alignment.
Would second exactly what Dr. Barker just said as far as the alignment of processes culminating in the plan. And would just, want to tip my hat to you in a long line of people who have worked here in our professional learning department and brought it to where it is. I remember that group needing some reformation, and that brought Dr. Brockman to it, right? And Beth did a great job in getting a structure set, but it wasn't where we are now. And then Michelle King followed that, and then our friend Dr. Miller followed that, and now you're there. And so just hats off to those people that came before you, but also the work you're doing, because it hasn't always been like this, and this is exceptional. without any questions. So no pressure, Kelly. Just keep it rolling.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
No, it's been really great, and I mean, there are so many great people that are still in collaboration with this, and great people before me. But the team works really hard, and we've really worked to collaborate with campus principals to really see that impact on student growth and professional growth. And so we really want to see those goals moving forward, and we're really trying to align that.
Well, and the group that just left, the human resources group, this is a secret weapon they've got, because we can attract great staff, but what are we doing to keep them? Well, we're going to make you better.
Yep.
And this is how. So I appreciate the work.
100% agree. Yes, sir.
Ms. Alcatab?
I'm just going to chime in third time. Same thing. I love seeing the connection that you guys have made with the balanced scorecard, or with the scorecard and the long-range plan, and that collaboration piece. It is significant. And ditto to what Dr. Bonner said about this is something attractive to us to keep our teachers. We're trying to figure out how do we keep them in LASD, the best district in Texas, and this is one of those ways. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, and we are really working hard in collaboration with HR to really help support those teachers, because now, especially now that we've got them, we're looking at how do we keep them, right? So we keep doing that. So yes, we're working on that.
I just wanted to say that, for the many years that I've watched the professional learning, I echo what Dr. Bonner says, that, being here and in this seat for as many years and seeing the transitions, but also seeing that growth, because I think really, in at least us sitting up here, we see that investment into our employees, and an employee knowing that you are willing to not only invest that time and that resource into making them a better employee and a better person is key. And it's what brings, I believe, LISD together, is because when we talk about the LISD family, it all begins with learning. And it's learning of the students, and it's learning of the staff, it's learning of this board, it's learning of those relationships, and just that whole collaboration. And so just once again, great job, and look forward to it, and love to hear those stories. Love to hear those times when we get to sit at a table and learn about somebody who's been doing some research and what they've learned and how that can move forward into the classroom. And sometimes it's what we think it is, and sometimes it's not. And isn't that great that we have that ability to be able to say, you know what, if it isn't what we thought it was, let's work on doing it the way that you've seen success. So I appreciate that, and thank you so much.
No, thank you very much.
So I will say also echo many things that my fellow trustees have said. I think it is definitely one of the pieces that made us one of the best places to work in Texas, and why we are one of the only ISDs on that list. It's not just getting you in the door, it's how we keep you. I would say we don't just do the must-dos, we do what we need to do for the LISD way. So all that, as you said, that's listed on slide 5 is certainly not a comprehensive issue of what we offer in the district. And I think it is part of the LISD way, so to speak. So thank you very much.
No, I agree, and I really think that we try to work individually with people. While we're a large district, we really try to put that personal touch on that. So I appreciate all of y'all's comments.
Yeah. Ms. Taylor, did you have anything to add?
Nothing that has already been said. Thank you.
And we're home to one of the elementary Texas Teacher of the Year finalists because of that learning and growth. Way to go, Dr. Russell.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the finance report. Ms. Maloney, RFQ 3115-23, Architectural Engineering and Related Professional Services for Emergency Radio Coverage Enhancement System.
Thank you so much, President Prosnick. Mr. Fite will be presenting on this item.
All right. Good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and the board. So tonight I am bringing forward the discussion item for RFQ 3115-23, Architectural Engineering and Related Professional Services for Emergency Radio Coverage Enhancement System. So Section 510 of the International Fire Code, as well as the National Fire Protection Agency Code, both require that existing buildings be provided with approved radio coverage for first responders. So these building codes have been adopted by all the municipalities within LISD, and unfortunately the cost to provide such a system lies with the building owner. Having full communication capability by our first responders is obviously critical for our safety and security in our schools. So in September 2019, the board approved an architect to provide designs for all of our high schools and ninth grade campuses to receive this type of installation. In June of 2020, the board approved the guaranteed maximum price for that project. That work was completed utilizing existing 2017 bond savings, and it was closed out by the board in June of 2022. So what we learned from that project was exactly what the process entails. Each campus must be tested with specific equipment. Plans are generated that show areas of poor coverage. Then designs are then created to boost the signals in those areas. And a contractor then installs the system. So we found that our traditional architects that we have on board here in the district, they do not perform this type of testing in-house. They sub that work out. And there are also companies that specialize in the installation as well. So rather than use our board-approved architects for this service, we put out this RFQ to target specific vendors in this industry that ideally do not have to subcontract portions of this work out. Along with the high schools and ninth grade campuses that I mentioned, there were some projects in the 2017 bond that also received this type of system, those that had larger projects like a 20-year life cycle maintenance and repair, for example. So as such, we're down to about 55 locations left that we need to test. I will note that, we're not expecting every single facility to require one of these systems, but you do have to test every one of them. So as part of this request for qualifications process, 994 invitations to bid were sent out by procurement, and LISD received 8 responses. 5 of those firms were shortlisted for interviews. And as a reminder, per Texas Government Code Section 2254, RFQ selections are only made based on qualifications. So fees are not turned in or discussed as part of this process. And so next week you'll see a consent item with the district's recommendation for award in this step 1 of this process. If that consent item is approved, our next steps would be for procurement and contracts to negotiate a fair and reasonable price for the testing and design services. We will then come back to the board for approval of those expenditures, a construction delivery method, and then ultimately the price for construction to get this work underway. The funding source for the services related to this RFQ would come from the 2022-2025 School Safety Standards Formula Grant that was awarded to LISD. It is the intention to use the remainder of that grant to also do as many installations as possible. However, when the grant funding is exhausted, funds would have to come from another fund source, such as bond funds planned in the 2023 bond. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? My only question is on the rubric. I just what is a financial qualification of firm? What is that?
So, Craig may want to answer that, but that's pretty standard on all of the RFQs for all professional services. It just means that the company is in good standing, that financially they could, handle a project for the district, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Moving on to September 11 regular board meeting consent agenda review.
Thank you,
Maloney.
President. Thank you, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, members of the board. The consent agenda preview is before you in this item. The first item on there is the item that Mr. Veit just spoke about. It's the first step doing this qualification process for radio coverage enhancement system. The second item is a utility line easement. This is because of all of the projects that are going on at the colony. Probably there will be others of these to follow as we complete the Colony High School multipurpose facility. For the RFP F1 106823 staff development, this is a new bid to support our Guardian program and the training requirements that we'll be utilizing for that program. It is a partially unfunded mandate. The 88th legislative session did award some safety money at a per campus level and upped it to $10 per student, but we are spending here in LISD for an officer on each campus well north of $4 million on the program, so a partially unfunded mandate there. I wanted to bring that to your attention. For the instructional material asset recovery, this is just to remove outdated materials from our warehouse. We do, as per our policy, we do hope to possibly collect a little revenue along the way for that. For annual purchases, we have our TXVSN item on here for virtual classes. We do not charge a course fee when the course is taken within the school day. And LISD is the TXVSN course provider, but students do pay a course fee under the following conditions that are listed there. For the recycling program, we are required by the state and by legal policy, it is mandated to have a recycling program. So we have our expenditures listed there, and I would consider that an unfunded mandate as well, because we are required to operate said program. The renewal of the campus sound system refresh and other audio-visual products. The 2017 Technology Bond projects funded some of these. This is to upgrade the final campuses. We have 25 of those left. And the last three items are bulk purchases that really add up, to include the first one being the audio-visual equipment, and then our computer, laptops, and tablets and things associated with that. And then the last one, hardware, software, licensing, repairs, all of the things that really add up to those technology purchases. And that is your consent agenda preview as you go through it for
Thank you.
Next week.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, moving on. Technology report, Mr. Colbeck. First up are the PEAMS changes and implications. EdFi.
Thank you, Madam President. David Kuntz in our technology department and Kathy Bray from our assessment accountability department are here. They're going to go through a presentation. As you have very likely read in the board report and what we've talked about for some time, we've been working on a few EdFi projects. There's some changes coming, so this group is going to kind of break that down and foreshadow what's coming in the area of PEAMS reporting and EdFi.
Okay, so we are currently in a state where we submit 12 submissions to the state with 3 chances to correct the large submissions. There are a series of file uploads. This allows us to verify the data and get it right. There are over 367 data elements. I say over now because they've just landed a whole bunch on us. So when I wrote this, it was 367. It is no longer 367. And they either require manual input or system calculation to meet the requirements. So while it says 367, it's actually a little more robust than that when you actually go down and dig a little farther. Beginning in the 24-25 school year, they are requiring us to move to a system called EdFi, which is basically a direct pull from our vendors, which currently are Skyward and Tyler Munis, and even the testing vendors, which is CLI, who does our pre-K and kinder testing. So all of our vendors have to be certified through the state to be EdFi ready. That's a requirement. Vendors must directly connect to an individual TEA database. Actually, this is David. I'm going to let you go there. Sorry.
That's all right. So the way EdFi is going to work, it's going to transition the data submission process from files being uploaded to this API interchange. So the data is going to flow at a regular basis from the source systems here at the district, which are our student information system, our ERP, finance HR system, and these testing systems. And it'll flow up to a local operational data store, which is basically a database in the cloud that TEA has. And the local aspect of it is that that data will be isolated to just the district's data at that level. Every district in the state will have that assigned to them. They'll each have one, and we will be our systems will transmit the data up there on a regular basis. Okay. After that point, the district will be responsible for pushing up the data from our database into the statewide TEA operational data store, the ODS. And so it's kind of like the submission process now, except from submitting files, we'll submit from our database up to the state centralized system. And in the meantime, once we're in that local data store, we'll be looking for those errors and warnings and trying to fix that throughout the year. And then we will have the opportunity to submit data as final, which is that final submission from our database up to the state database. Now, there's only certain systems that are currently participating in the parallel. So TEA has allowed certain vendors to have their systems as part of the parallel process this year. On this slide, you can see there's 9 vendors that are either an SIS, which is a student information system, or a HR, finance, ERP system vendor. And then at the bottom, you can see CLI, Amplify, and then there's kind of a generic TEA. That's kind of where they put the testing vendors on this slide. So, but there's a very limited quantity of vendors that are currently participating in the TEA parallel this year in preparation for going live next school year.
So part of this outcome, though, is that all our data must exist within our approved systems. We currently have some processes to help eliminate some data entry that will no longer be available to us. Vendors are removing the data space to manually update in the, what I'll say is the back end, to be able to put a file up there and eliminate some of that data entry. All vendors must be TEA compliant, which if you just, I'm an economics head as well, and if you just think about that, it limits, kind of creates a monopoly of vendors that we can go after if we are considering any other vendors at any point. And then this is the big one to me that just gives me lots of angst, possible removal of resubmissions. Their stance, and they've said it multiple times now, is that, you know, you should just have it right the first time. But when you're talking about the data sets that we're talking about, that's a big task. I mean, everybody that I've been there just takes a big gasp when they hear it. So the other thing is it's due to the impacts of PEIMS. They don't let us change PEIMS data to correct it after the submission. So if we have, we're just talking about accountability. If we have an accountability problem, it's right now, I can't change it. Even if we can tell them and prove to them that we have it, we can't change it. So if we miss something and don't have a chance for resubmission, we're setting ourselves up, as well as every other district. But it also impacts financials too. If you take this little example of, it's not little, but you know, if we don't get all our economically disadvantaged kids coded, think about all that funding that just doesn't happen. So that's the big one to me that I really worry about. You're up, I think.
On this one.
Okay. So the resource drain, we're moving away from, again, the removal of the space where data can be manipulated on the back end. So we'll have to return to data entry, which is a unintended financial cost to districts. Every process has to be reevaluated and run parallel this year. So we are draining almost every department to have to relook at how we're doing this to make sure everything gets through. And then again, the extreme consequences, if we don't get it right, our revenue is immensely impacted, and you know, you could go as far as an F rating if you wanted to be dramatic, but it could happen.
So Kathy had alluded to the fact that we're going to have to modify some of the processes around the district. And those have developed over time. It may have been that a system didn't support a certain thing that the district was doing that was required to be reported by the state, and so they created a workaround for it. It may be that the process to enter that data directly into the front end of the system is arduous at the campus level, so a centralized bulk upload process was developed because it was more efficient to upload the amount of data that was necessary, or some other bulk edit process. Those are not going to be available once we move to EdVi. The data has to be entered into those source systems directly, so right into the front end of our student information system or ERP, manually by the person at the campus, most likely, or a person in a department. We just lined out a few examples to highlight here where we foresee impacts based on the practices in the district right now. And so you can look those over and see that we anticipate impacts in HR, in the Skyward team, and technology, special ed, campuses, counselors, special programs, finance. So several areas are going to be impacted where we may have developed a process that's more efficient that's now going to be pushed back down to those departments to manually key the data into the front end. And so we foresee a big impact. So timeline, again, the Ed5 processes are going to be going live in the state in the 24-25 school year, so next school year. We are in the parallel this year. We fought to be a part of that on both the student information system and all of the submissions that Skyward is testing this year, and to be a part of what Tyler Munis is doing for our ERP system. During that process, this parallel year, the PEMS department is going to be looking at the state reporting and trying to identify which data elements are currently going to be impacted by a process that's going to no longer be compliant once we hit Ed5. And as we identify those different processes, we're going to be going to the departments and saying, okay, we've got to do this differently. Let's work through a revised process that would be Ed5 compliant in the future.
I want to add one piece on here too. In the next week, you're going to hear a ERP update. So part of what we're doing in our, I guess, discovery mode right now and mapping out business processes, especially when we see some of these processes that we have where there might have been a centralized way to enter data, or if data isn't necessarily entered in the right way that it would, I guess, support or complement whatever you needed for the Ed5 process. We're trying to identify those things right now in this discovery and business mapping process we're doing.
So from an advocacy piece, it really would be beneficial if they could hold on new data elements and submissions until conversion is complete. Because the more they add on, the more we have to figure out, quite frankly. Allow for the resubmission. That one, again, is big to me. And then kind of provide more transparency to the LEAs. Right now, our system's not even ready to do this. So we're kind of driving blind. We are in the parallel, but it's not ready. I mean, the vendors aren't ready. They're partially ready, but they're not ready. We're getting trained actually tomorrow for the first time, and we're already 5 weeks in. So if we're doing something inaccurately, I've got to go correct 5 weeks of data right now already. So that's kind of a problem. And then, just the understanding that this is a large undertaking, and I just, TEA can hear that because it's on top of everything else. And that's it. That's all we have.
Any questions? Dr. Barker.
What are the benefits of moving to Ed5? I'm hearing a lot of concerns, but I'm curious as to why is this happening?
I think the Ed5 itself is basically a interoperability data model. So when you look at 1,200 school districts in Texas, and you look at how things are coded, and looking at comps and comparisons, I think the intent is to try to create consistency in how schools do this. I think its intent is to create consistency for data integrations and processes that are running, and that also ties back into some of the vendors we're using. So when you think about it, we have to come up with ways to look at data, extract data, provision, roster. All of that is it happens so much more efficiently when data is consistent. So I think that's the long-term goal of this, but I think there's a lot of growing pains, as you heard tonight, in trying to get the state, with a fully compliant Ed5 system.
They are
and
also,
others?
they explained to us that they are also out of compliance with the federal submissions. They're not making them, and so there's a big emptiness in Texas because we're not making that deadline.
So it's really a matter of the districts making TEA's job easier.
Yes.
And I think to add on to that, the last bullet they had under advocacy was really we're looking for more transparency too, Dr. Barker, with where and how TEA will be sharing that LEA data. Because we feel absolutely an obligation to our commitment to data privacy for our families, and are asking a lot of questions that we want to be able to report back to you all about that we don't have answers to at this time.
And I think in combination to what Dr. Rapp said, and what Kathy said, when this was drafted, there was 367 data elements. So if you can only imagine the combination of that, and some of that is, you really have to ask the question, do you need all of that? And I think that's what we're wondering as a local LEA. And then if you do, where does it go? In what programs?
I think just one more example to that. I think really helps underscore that point about the 367 elements. Let's take House Bill 4545 that now is 1416. That's created a new set of data elements. They want to know from districts, how are you offering that tutoring? Who's showing up to the tutoring? We're not just taking attendance on whether students are coming to their regularly scheduled classes. We're going to take attendance on a piece of legislation. And that's really, I think, what we just continue to try to articulate voice to, is that every time right now legislation's passed, and I know we've talked about, the addition of staff to the agency, it takes people to do this. And our people are on campus teaching and supporting students all day long. And so I think 1416 is just a small example of how a piece of legislation unfolds into new data elements with PEIMS.
I think that's my challenge, Dr. Rapp, is that the state is issuing continual mandates of things that we have to do when we're trying to keep teachers in the classroom. And so all of these things that add on to the weight and load of our staff members is less support that we can provide to our teachers. And that's a challenge that I know we're all facing. And I'm a data person, so I get it. Like, yes, we want consistent data. Like, yes, that's easier to work with. But there's got to be some ways to transition that are easier than this. I'm done ranting, to borrow Buddy's phrasing.
Ms. Sells?
Yeah, I just jotted down here because I have real concerns if TEA wants us to submit to them in a manner that is theirs. I would agree to that if we're going through their systems. But I really struggle with maintaining the integrity of that data and the safety of that data when they are taking away my local control as a board member to say, I want to use this vendor to help submit that data. And so I think that is where I really struggle with this whole process. Hey, if I'm going to be trying to decipher data, I want it submitted to me correct the first time. But once again, we're not dealing with robots here. We're dealing with human beings. And we're dealing with human beings who have just keep getting it piled on and piled on and piled on. And they're breaking. And this is just one more step in that. And so I just struggle. I see the thought. I do not appreciate the implementation.
I'd echo that. I would ask you, how often do we resubmit PEIMS data?
So the 3 submissions, pretty much we resubmit almost every time.
And is that due to what I would just call didn't format it right, human error?
Most of the time it's human error in the sense of just didn't understand that was what was supposed to happen, or that's where it is in the vendor's software. Like, oh, we thought it was here, but it really was here. Sometimes it's purely we look at the numbers and go, something doesn't seem right, and we start asking questions on the way that TEA is calculating something, and then we're like, oh, that's the interpretation of it, and we get to fix that.
Has TEA ever gotten it wrong?
Yeah.
I'll end on that.
Well, I'm going to jump in on that. So I'm kind of looking at this like any other software implementation, right? And it's early on, and when it's early on in any of these, the sky is falling, right? Because we're going to have to change what we're doing is not good enough, et cetera, et cetera. I have confidence in this row right here. Everything's going to be fine. granted, TEA may have constructed a system that will collapse under its own weight, right? And we have to keep on them about that. But I know, Kathy Bray, I know you and I and Dr. Fitzhugh over there have been talking about PEEM submission data for a long time. And so any effort to standardize that and make it better and more accurate for the district, we've got to embrace. It's going to be a struggle to get there, but I'm hopeful that your continued work in implementing it and in communicating with TEA will encourage them to put some things in place, like maybe a near final submission of data where maybe 2 weeks out you submit and clean up and then resubmit. Because, again, Lewisville ISD is a big district. How are these little bitty districts going to do this? So I have confidence in you all and making sure it gets done, even though it's onerous and something we may not want to do. Thank you.
All right, moving on. The Apple Residual Value RFP.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask Michelle Jacobson to come up. As you know, in the past, as she's coming up, I'll just kind of lay the groundwork on this. As you know, in the past, we've done what we call a residual value sale. In the past, that's really been focused on Apple products, which this one would be again, and you know what we've done in the past, and you see that even in your budget reports as well. I think we're somewhere around 4.3 million that we've made over the years in Apple residual value. So the board has approved a couple projects in May, June. We've been doing some refreshes, so that kind of fits into this need to do it now. So I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, and she'll kind of give you a status of where we are in this project.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, going into the summer, we knew that we were going to be collecting a lot of devices. And let me preface this, the devices that we were collecting were purchased from 2012, 2013, 2015. They lasted us a really long time. But my team, 3 of them over there in the corner, collected 16,210 devices over the course of the summer. Really looking at the breakdown, we had about 55% that were iPads and then 44% that were MacBooks. We did go ahead and we opened up an RFP August the 11th, just closed right before we went into the long break. We had 18 vendors who submitted proposals, so my team will be looking over that, having some questions answered, and then we are looking at bringing that back to the board as a consent item at the October 16th board meeting. And then hopefully from there we'll be able to award it. We'll have whoever the awarded vendor come and pick up all the devices prior to Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, and I just want to add to, Michelle was talking a little bit about the age, but as you can imagine with that percentage of iPads, if you think about what we rolled out from the 2017 bond, we have devices that break and fail and broken glass and all that stuff. So we have some of that stuff sitting here we've used for parts, so there's going to be a certain number of those in there. And obviously with the age, especially with some of the MacBooks, as old as what they were, I'm not sure how much actual street value there is. So I want to be a realist on whatever we end up getting back for, proposals on this. But there is still a market for some of this stuff, so that's why we're doing it.
Absolutely.
Comments, questions, anybody? Always appreciate you trying to find money for the district, Mr. Colbeck. Next up is network storage backup software licensing support and related products and services.
All right, thank you. I've asked Mr. Langford to come up and share this topic with the board. So, Chris, take it away.
Sure. So, should be pretty short and sweet. In part of the 2017 bond in the fall of 2018, we purchased a network backup solution. That's what stores the backups for all of our servers and databases and important data for the district. So along with that, we purchased 5 years of support and maintenance for that system. That 5 years of support and maintenance is coming up in November of this year. And we had talked in the past that we have a few items still that we would like to spend 2017 bond funds on. This is one of those items just to cover the software support and maintenance for the next year. And theoretically, if the 2023 bond passes, then this will be one of the systems, one of the first systems that we will replace as part of that 2023 bond process. We should only need 1 more year of support and licensing for this system.
Yeah, and as Chris was mentioning, this potentially could be kind of a bridge to get another year out of that hardware. And then, as you can see in the discussion item, we're estimating the budget for this to be about $85,000, which, as he mentioned, would be paid for with the remaining balance of 2017 technology bond budget.
Comments? Anybody? Thank you so much. Appreciate the work.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up is the Board of Trustees report. The first thing up is Board Policy BED Local, which deals with speakers at our board meetings. This policy was worked on with Board Counsel Ms. Turner. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer any questions regarding it, or Ms. Bay can. Would you like to pitch it up for anything? Because you're looking at me like that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how I was looking at you. Yes, so board policy BED is up for consideration per your board operating procedures. This is just a first read and open for discussion. It has been communicated, I believe, with you guys and your board counsel, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much. We have 3 board committee kind of updates. The first up would be, Dr. Barnes, do you have anything for the audit committee?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Prosnick. On the board audit committee, as everyone's well aware, we are looking at procurement and Mr. Martin this year. I know he's excited about that. And we had a meeting last week, I think, and the ball is rolling, right? And there's a beginning here next month or so, and I think we targeted February for conclusion. So the things are underway, and we're excited to see what Craig's been up to.
Ms. Lasan is the chair of the Employee Awards and Recognitions.
Yes, so we are working through several things. The first thing is that we're working on is dignitary nights. We have given Ms. Brim some direction on that, and then we are also going to, Catherine and Michelle and I are going to meet and talk about employee award banquets and recognition at board meetings coming up soon. So that's where we are.
Thank you. My only update for the Program and Budget Review Committee is that we have given administration parameters to look at and some targeted areas to come back to the committee with recommendations and offerings. That's pretty good. All right. Anybody have anything else? All right. If there be no further business, this meeting is adjourned. This time is 7:47 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.